May I come in, sir?
Yes, please do.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Please take your seat.
Thank you, sir.
You're Mr. Vasu Jain.
Yes, sir.
Vasu, you're happy talking English?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so will that be your preferred medium?
Yes, sir.
Fine. Vasu, you must have noticed that we are being careful when it comes to COVID. And we have taken several steps. One of the steps is that we have capped your chair at a very a safe distance. So effectively, you are at a safe distance from anybody in this room. We have done it because we understand that it can be very uncomfortable giving interview wearing mask. So idea is that even if you remove your mask, you are at a safe distance and must be feeling safe. So would you like to remove your mask?
Yes, sir.
Please do.
Thank you, sir.
So Vasu, comfortable?
Yes, sir.
Can we start?
Yes, sir.
To begin with, tell us something about you.
Sir, I am Vasu Jain. I am a resident of Delhi. I have done my schooling from Lovely Public Senior Secondary School, wherein I was the head boy. Then I have pursued BSc LLB from Gujarat National Law University. During my college tenure, sir, I have interned with various organizations like the Honorable Supreme Court of India, the Honorable Delhi High Court, and various law firms in the country. Sir, thereafter, I was associated with Pratham for a brief period of time as Assistant Legal Manager. Sir, currently I am mentoring students with respect to law entrance examination, and recently I have been selected as Assistant Commandant in CRPF.
In?
CRPF, Central Armed Police Forces, sir.
Which force?
Sir, CRPF, Central Reserve Police Force.
You got CRPF?
Yes, sir.
So you intend to join that?
Sir, the joining would be later this year. So I have not given a serious thought about it, but in case the results are, civil service results are not favorable, then I would be joining those services.
Okay. So Vasu, going by the qualification in your academic graph so far, it seems that you're fit for legal fraternity. You're a person who should be either practicing or you should either be in the bar or in the bench. Why are you here?
Sir, I feel that my legal acumen and my legal knowledge would certainly help me in my career in civil services. So a civil servant is required to have a good knowledge of law, and in that case, it would help me there. Also, one very fundamental benefit which I would be having because of law is that, so while we were studying law helped us to accommodate different points of view, to become tolerable, to be accommodative, and to appreciate different perspectives. And when as a civil servant, you're dealing with public, you need to be accommodative, you need to be receptive. So I think that quality law has given ingrained in me, and that would be helping me in my career in civil services, sir.
Well, you rightly pointed out that accommodating different point of views, sometimes conflicting point of views is a wonderful thing, and it should be there in civil services. Should it also be there in politics? What do you say? Do you believe that the governments, the decision makers at the political level, at the highest level, they too should be accommodating to the conflicting or at least differing point of views?
So I feel that that is essentially in almost all walks of life, may it be administrative service or government. Sir, if you see the recent vaccine policy of the government, wherein before the May, government was following certain policy, then there was reversal of policy with respect to centralized procurement, and then government reversed its policy. So that showed that government was open to take other opinion also, and was okay with reversing its own policy decision if it thinks that would be better for the during the pandemic, handling of the pandemic. So I think the government is open to that, and that should be the case, sir.
But since you're coming from Delhi, and we all in Delhi find that it is not happening to the level it should when it comes to Delhi government and union government. They always seems to be on the opposite pace. Why is so much conflict is there when it comes to union government and the elected government of Delhi?
So I feel that one of the reason of these conflicts between the two power heads of the unitary of Delhi, one being the Lieutenant Governor and the other being the Chief Minister, is that the powers and the roles of both these functionaries were not very well defined, at least before the Supreme Court judgment. The Supreme Court judgment was one such step which defined the role of both these functionaries, and then after this recent amendment of 2020, those functions have given more have been more clarified to a greater extent. So I think before that judgment there were certain various tussles, but now situation is improving and there is a harmonious relationship we can see coming up between the two power centers or the two functional
The recent flashpoint between the two is on the appointment of the prosecutors.
Yes,
You
sir.
are coming from the legal fraternity, you are a Delhi person. Tell me, why is it so important that it has become an ego issue that who should be the prosecutor? Why central government insists that the idea of appointing prosecutors should be vested with them rather than the Delhi government?
Yes, sir.
Matlab, tell me inside story. What exactly? Why is it so important? How does it matter who is the prosecutor?
So if we see in case of the last year, the incident which took place on 26 January, the Delhi government is being represented by the state public prosecutor, which is of Delhi government. However, Delhi government essentially comes under the union government, and thus there is a conflict, or there is a opinion that the Delhi government should be represented by a special prosecutor, which can represent its own case and separate from the state case, the union territories case. So that is the contention of the Delhi government. And I feel that, sir, that should be the thing, because we have seen that there has been many, court is of the view that the prosecution is not able to come up with a very strong case in that case. And I think that there should be, if there is a special prosecutor for the Delhi government, that would be better in this case, in my limited opinion.
Thank
sir.
you.
So, gentlemen, you are what? Law graduate.
Yes, sir.
Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. And you are in CRPF.
Yes,
So,
sir.
starting with what CRPF law, right? CRPF work on, like other what armed forces, on a certain manual. CRPF manual having 7 chapters, right? What is the first and last chapter?
Sir, I'm not aware of this. I will read about it, sir. My apologies.
You are what? Student of law.
Yes, sir.
And actually profession of yours is also law, right? Okay. The first chapter is what? Organization and procedure. What are the organization or procedure of CRPF in India, considering the actually India's internal security?
Yes, sir. So CRPF is the largest central armed police force of the country. It is basically dealing with the internal law and order and internal security aspect of the country. There are around more than 240 battalions in the CRPF, which are dealing with different aspects. And there are some special battalions also. For example, the Cobra forces, which we see, is a specialized organ of the CRPF.
Look, you have what started with Cobra force.
Yes, sir.
What are the areas nowadays Cobra force have been deployed in across India? Tell me. What are the areas? What are the districts?
Yes, sir. Sir, I'm not aware of the districts. But
Then you never try. There would be factual error. You never try.
apologies, sir.
Okay.
My apologies, sir.
Next question of mine is what? Look, International Criminal Court, The Hague,
Yes, sir.
and another very important thing, that is Interpol. Both are working together, right? And you see the territorial crime, water, beyond territorial water, crimes in maritime crimes have increased tremendously,
Yes, sir.
right? There is a sovereign agents, non-sovereign agents, right? So considering the natural justice, what type of reforms you are going to suggest to what international criminal courts on one hand, and look Interpol on the other hand, please.
Yes, sir. Sir, may I take a few seconds to think
of
about?
course.
Thank you, sir. Sir. Sir, when it comes to ICC, International Criminal Court, I think the first major reform would be in the case of prosecution. If presently we see it is, although it is having an independent prosecution office, but that prosecutor, the appointment of prosecutor is not very well defined. So sometimes that might happen.
Prosecution is not possible in maritime areas if you have not proper surveillance.
Yes, sir.
And surveillance is not possible without you are going to do global level what actually assistance. And you know the developed countries are biased one, they are against natural justice, right? So what role UNO should play?
Yes, sir. So I think in this case, the different multilateral organizations, as you have correctly, as the board correctly mentioned about the Interpol, the coordination between Interpol, the state agencies, and the UN security forces, that should be coordinated when it comes to such certain crimes. Because if you see hijacking, it is not just, it has been mentioned as a crime against humanity, and that comes under the ambit of UNSC.
Yeah,
So
I could understand. My next question is what, look, we have what district level revenue court,
Yes, sir.
right? And we have a district level what, look, a civil court. On what basis you are going to differentiate? Because both are what actually in reality dealing with the civil actually cases. So what is the basic difference in dealing with of cases with what DM revenue court and district civil court? Please.
Sir, the fundamental difference comes with respect to revenue court. There are executives in the revenue court, whereas civil court is purely judicial organ of the government. Second,
Means the revenue court is not court, quasi court, what, or tribunals.
so I would say at the more basic level, there is the role of district magistrate who also works at the collector, who is essentially the arbitrator or
But
judge.
I am asking only court procedure.
Yes, sir.
What is the basic difference in procedure, law
Yes, sir.
procedure, not power and duty, please?
The civil courts are bound by CPC, Civil Procedure Code. On the other hand, revenue courts do not have a very stringent procedure.
So what
code.
is the basis of revenue court, please?
The principles of natural justice. They follow the principles of natural justice. That,
There is no codification of law?
so as far as I am aware, for the revenue courts, there is no strict procedure code in
Is
place.
there codification of law or not?
So not of, sir, in my limited opinion, not of procedural code. For substantive law, certainly yes, but not for procedural law, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Vasu,
Yes, sir.
you have done LLB and law is your optional. Let's take a hypothetical situation that you are practicing as a lawyer and a person comes to you for and asking you to represent him in the court, and he is like accused of a very heinous crime. Okay. And in the course of, like, you take up the assignment, and in the course of your discussion with that person, you come to know that he is actually guilty of that crime. Whether you will continue to represent him, or you will say that no.
So, as a lawyer, it's sir, lawyers are the officers of the court, and it's the professional ethics of a lawyer not to return any brief if he has accepted it. So, as a lawyer, my duty would be to represent him fairly, so that he gets a free and fair trial. And a
So, will that lead to justice or injustice overall?
so,
Suppose you win the case.
sir, as a lawyer, the duty is not to sir, the lawyer's duty is to present his case in a very impartial and a transparent manner, not to subvert the case or bring incorrect situation. So my duty as a lawyer.
So, we often see this case that many a times the bar associations and lawyers associations, they say that we will not be representing the accused of a particular crime. Is that right or is that wrong?
So that essentially violates the right to legal representation of the accused.
But then it is done very often. Very often we hear of such cases. Then
Yes.
why no action is being taken by the judiciary or the law association, bar association?
Sir, in that case, the state, in case the no private lawyer is willing to take up the case, the state assigns the lawyer or the legal counsel to the accused person.
Okay, these days we also hear about a term which is called judicial patriarchy.
Yes.
What do you understand by this term?
So, sir, sometimes we see the judgments which have the patriarchal spirit in them, or which are not in tune with the social
So,
social
judges
gender
are also
parity.
coming from the same society. So, they are having the same views. What is wrong in that?
So, however, a judge is supposed to give a gender neutral and a progressive judgment. For example, we have seen certain judgments like tying a rakhi, which essentially emboldens the patriarchal mindset.
Or asking the rape victim to marry the accused.
Yes, sir. So these are certain things which are being cropping up, and the judiciary has taken note of it. So there have been comments by Honorable Justice Mr. Chandrachud that such kind of statements or judicial patriarchy should be counted at the all.
Okay,
all
what do you
levels.
understand by this phrase, nemo judex causa sua? What is that?
So it is one of the principles of natural justice, which says that no one should be a judge in his own case.
Okay. And if we apply it to the contempt law, then does contempt law hold true to this?
Yes, sir. Sir, in any situation, the principles of natural justice cannot be violated. May it be the
But
contempt.
in case of contempt law, the court is deciding on the contempt in which itself it is a party.
So, although this is a principle of natural justice, but there are certain exceptions to it, and that this falls under the doctrine of necessity. So, it says that when there is a necessity, that means there cannot be any other board or any other judge who could be listening to this case.
Thank you. My last question to you is like we often see, especially in film movies and all, that the statue of the Lady of Justice,
Yes, sir.
she is wearing something like her eyes are covered. Why is that?
So that essentially shows that all are equal before the court of law, and no matter who is coming before the court of law, all would be treated
equally.
impartially and at the
Thank you,
same
sir.
footing.
Vashu,
Yes, sir.
why we don't have any lady CJI yet,
So,
apart from seniority and all
Yes, sir.
that? Any other reason?
so that is a matter of concern, and various Supreme Court judges have taken this up. One of the reason is if we see in the initial stages of judiciary after the independence, there were very less female female lawyers or female judges, and it was only in 1980 that the first Supreme Court female judge was appointed. So there has been less participation of females in this in this sector. However, recently times are changing, and now female participation in legal field is increasing, and thus we can envisage a situation within some years that we can have more female judges.
Okay. When you were law researcher with Honorable Justice Naveen Sinha,
Yes, sir.
have you observed any practice there in Supreme Court or whatever? You would like to change that particular practice?
So may I?
Please.
So, although it is not very essentially related to the courtroom proceeding, but one such practice was wherein some of the senior advocates were coming up with a parade of lawyers to show their authority and to show their power. So I
Okay,
think.
one. Anything
Yes.
else?
So this is so I can think of this thing.
Okay. Recently, a Sikh woman was prevented from entering the examination hall.
Yes, sir.
With have you gone through this news?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is your take on this issue, being a law student?
So I feel that there are two conflicting law coming into picture. The first being the right of the woman to profess and practice her religion, which says that 5 Ks, that is Kada, Kirpan, Kesh, they can be carried by her. And even the Constitution under Article 25 talks about Kirpan being carried by a Sikh person. So that is there with respect to the lady. However, when it comes to certain practices by the state, for example, when there is conduction of examination, to ensure that there is no malpractice in the examination, there is no unfair means being taken into the exam hall, certain restrictions can be imposed by the state machinery. And I feel that such restrictions were with those restrictions of not carrying any metal inside the exam hall were a reasonable restriction in that case.
Suppose you are the judge, and after hearing both side arguments, what will be your judgment?
So I think I would be going with the state's view.
Okay. Last question from my side. Recently, Uniform Civil Code is in news. Goa has Uniform Civil Code, but in many sense, Goa has not. Could you specify this statement?
So
Means there are a lot of exceptions in Uniform Civil Code in Goa. Don't have any idea.
So I'm not very much well versed with the Goa Civil Code.
Okay. Thank you.
So
Thank you.
I will
Vasu.
read about it, sir.
Thank you. Sir.
Vasu.
Yes, sir.
Vasu, you being a lawyer, perhaps you are the right person to tell me about the Puttaswamy case.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, that was a 2017 judgment of 9-judge bench wherein the validity of Aadhaar was challenged. Aadhaar was challenged before a 5-judge bench, which was then referred to 9-judge bench with respect to right to privacy, whether right to privacy is a fundamental right or not. So in that case, the 9 judges unanimously held that right to privacy is enshrined under the Constitution under Article 21. And Justice Chandrachud has made a very interesting observation that the doctrine of constitutional dark matter. He says that just like there is dark matter in the universe, which we know, but we are not aware about it. We have to explore more about it. Similarly, there are certain legal concepts in the Constitution which are there, but we need to explore. And right to privacy is one such.
I understand. It's very interesting to know about the concept, which earlier I was not knowing. Anyway, in this regard, right to be forgotten, there is a case which has been filed recently in Delhi High Court. What is this?
So right to forgotten essentially means that in case there are some proceedings or any online content which is available, then the person who who is being represented in that matter in that content has a right to recall that content or get the content deleted from that online server. That is right.
Is this kind of the right which is available there in the Western countries?
Sir, the EU GDPR regime has mentioned about right to forgotten. However, it has not been very well recognized out. It is being debated but not recognized universally in the world.
Vasu, tell me about the Supreme Court's verdict over the right to protest versus right to mobility in the very case of this Shaheen Bagh case and all that.
Sir, the case is with respect to Aman Sahani versus Union of India, wherein the Supreme.
I'm not interested in knowing the legalities of the thing. Just wanted to know about which constitutional right which gives right to protest actually.
So, right to protest basically comes under Article 19(1)(a), that is freedom of speech and expression. So, because speech and expression is not just verbal speech but also action. So, right to protest essentially means that you are showcasing your opinion to the state through your action. So, that is protected under Article 19(1)(a). On the other hand, right to movement is under Article 19(1), which means that everyone has a.
What does say Article 19(2)?
So those are the reasonable restrictions on Article 19(1)(a).
Number of the cases related with the hate speech have we're cropping it out. In this case, Amish Devgan versus Union of India, what Supreme Court has observed over the hate speech? Is there any definition of the hate speech?
Yes, sir, I am not aware of this development, sir. I'll read about it.
Okay. Hate speech, it encroaches which fundamental right?
So basically, it is Article 19(1)(a) along with 90 restrictions under 19(2).
Vasu, you tell me about recently we have seen the PM Cares Fund. PM Care Funds is the establishment of another fund in the presence of Prime Minister National Relief Fund. At the same time, National Disaster Relief Fund also. How these three, the different entities, they are existing and serving the same purpose.
So I feel that PM, firstly talking about National Relief Fund, sir, in that case, the governing body of the National Relief Fund had certain private members also apart from the government government leaders, and thus there was a need felt to come up with a more accommodative body, and a PM Cares was formulated during the last year. Comparing it with the National Disaster Relief Fund, so that is essentially with respect to disaster, only with respect to disaster management, and also the contribution to that fund has been provided in the statute of 2005 itself. So to have a more flexible fund, PM Cares was made, so that not just with respect to disaster, but apart from the.
I understand. My last question to you. Can you name any three women personalities, those who were the part of the framing of the Indian Constitution?
So Mrs. Rajkumari Amrit Kaur, she was there. If I am not wrong, Mrs. Hansa Mehta was also there. Sir, I can recall these two personalities.
Okay, Vasu.
Yes, sir.
Vasu, you're originally from Delhi.
Yes, sir.
And but when I see your cadre choices, you have made this strange distinction between IAS and IPS. While you're okay with the Delhi Agmut as your cadre, home cadre in IPS,
Yes, sir.
you're not happy about the IAS. you have taken Maharashtra as your first
Madhya Pradesh, sir.
Huh?
Madhya
Madhya
Pradesh.
Pradesh as your first career choice. So can you tell me why is such a distinction there?
So I have chosen Madhya Pradesh in Indian Administrative Service because my extended family stays in Madhya Pradesh, so that being the prime motive. And when it comes to Indian Police Service, because AGMOT has various union territories which have commissionerate system, and thus the role of work in commissionerate system, the IPS can have a better impact creation. I have chosen AGMOT for that reason.
What do you
sir.
mean by impact creation here?
So, a commissionerate system provides various responsibilities to the police department, to police commissioner, with respect to licensing, with respect to certain orders which you can give under CRPC. So, in that case, he can directly affect the lives of the people, and thus can create an impact on the lives of the people.
You're from Delhi, you must be knowing about the Central Vista thing.
Yes, sir.
But if you leave the Central Vista aside and look at that whole area, my understanding is that the Supreme Court building is. What is your take? How can you appreciate the architecture of a Supreme Court building? Because to me, it sounds like a patch on the whole thing. It is asymmetrical in comparison to rest of the area. Do you believe that it is architecturally it is well designed a building? I want an honest thing. Any Delite will find the Supreme Court as an eyesore as a building.
Sir,
It's asymmetrical. It's look at the Rajpath. It's a very symmetrical place, and the entire area is symmetrical place. But if we look at Supreme Court, it seems a plot of land was available, and the building was kind of somehow fit into it.
So, firstly, I would say that geographically, Central Vista and Supreme Court are not there in the same area.
They're in the same area, but they're not on the same central axis. That's true.
Sir, and if you see the architecture of Supreme Court, in my opinion, sir, there has been a vertical symmetry being taken into consideration. So, if we see the central court, that is there is a dome, and then there is a.
Who designed it?
Sir, in my limited opinion, it was designed by Edward Lutyens and Howard Baker.
Okay, describe it further. You said that there's a central court.
Sir, central court along with the dome there, and then there are two buildings attached to it on both the sides. So I think they both serve as the create the symmetry on that part.
Have you ever seen the top view of the Supreme Court or never?
I have, sir.
And you still believe that it's a symmetrical building?
Sir, in my limited opinion, as far as I can recall, sir, I would say there was symmetry on that part.
Chaliye, no problem. You before we let you go, just tell me 3 reasons for which we may actually end up not selecting you.
Sir, I feel that if my mains performance was not good, that might be the first reason.
ठीक है.
Second would be my today's performance.
Okay.
And so apart from that, if there is anything else, I would be keen on working on that if the board could highlight me any area to work upon. Sir, I don't think there will be anything which, if there would be shortcomings, but I would be willing to work on them and improve on them.
Good. Fine. It was nice talking to you, Vasu. Your
Thank you,
interview is over. You can go now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Take your seat.
Thank you, sir.
So, Vasu, it's going to be your first interview.
It's the second interview.
What was your score last time?
182, sir.
182. And you missed by how much?
14 marks.
14 marks. And how is your mains this time?
Sir, relatively better, sir. Hopefully.
Relatively better. Fine. So, yes, tell me, since you've been through mail, you understand what is expected of you. Tell me, how was your performance today? What are the areas you believe you did fine and where you can still improve?
Sir, I think the performance was decent only, neither good, neither bad. Content need to be improved. There was nothing as such as X factor in my answers. Decent answers. So those things I need to work upon.
See, yes, I mean, it is true that we were able to ask on a limited domain actually, that There could have been other areas which I'm sure you have prepared, right? But coming to this interview and the performance in this interview, by and large, you're a very good candidate. You are a prepared candidate, one, in terms of content. In terms of personality, usually see, there are two ways of looking at it. One is that I give you a checklist of things you're doing right, and problem with that method is that you also have that checklist already, and you have ensured that there is a tick in everything. So your sitting posture is right, your voice level is right, your eye contact is right, your hand movement is restricted, your flow is good, your vocabulary is strong. That checklist thing is perfect. But I'm sure you understand that when we talk about actual performance, it's not just aggregate of checklists, right? So that is the only gap here. You're doing technically everything right, but the impact that should be coming is, it's okay, it's good, as you said, it's decent, but it can be a little better.
Yes, sir.
This is what my understanding. A problem is that I cannot tell you that do this thing by adding another checkbox. Adding checkbox will not do, right? Because you're doing, technically you're doing everything right. The only thing I can tell you is that make sure that there is more natural Vasu when you're having a conversation, right? A little lesser smile at a few places will help. It's not that your smile is bad, it's not that you're smiling at wrong places, no. But still, sometimes it appears as if it's being overdone, right? Not that it's looking bad, it's not looking bad, but it sometimes looks a little artificial, right? That is one area that you can work on. Other things, in general, the content-wise, you're doing things right, and you have that balance, right? And coming to specific areas, unfortunately, we could ask only a handful of areas. There are many areas still left out. I'm sure you have prepared for those also, right? Delhi, I'm expecting you to do, it's not that you're doing bad, but since we could not ask many questions on Delhi culture and other areas, I hope those aspects are also prepared. So overall, you're a very good candidate. You're doing all things right. I expect you to do really well, and I'm sure this time there will be nothing stopping you. Right?
Thank you, sir.
All the best.
Thank you.
Theek. You want to ask something?
Sir, one of the board members asked about, sir asked about state and the lady, whom should I give in favor of judgment? So in such questions, what should I give a
See, the idea, it's such open-ended questions are not really to find out the right choice or wrong choice. These questions are to see whether you are able to substantiate or not. We have been advising give sensitivity more weightage in comparison to rationality. Rationality says what you said, that I will not be differentiating no matter what. But sensitivity suggests that if two candidates at the same spot, then let's see the journey. Who have suffered more to reaching at the same level. So the one who has traveled more should be given a little more preference. In this case, for example, women.
Yes, sir.
But it's not a right or wrong question. If you are substantiating it well, you're through. Right?
And
all the best.
Lastly, you asked about Supreme Court architecture.
Just go and read. I mean, there are people who believe. I mean, I'm not saying that's right. There are people who believe that Supreme Court is such an important institution. It should be better placed, and it should be better designed.
So in such cases, I can take this. I can take this opinion.
You were right. See, you need to understand that the institute, even architecture is not just building. Architecture is also about the life that's been going on. The Supreme Court has become a symbol in itself.
Yes, sir.
So that is the most important. And you could have mentioned that Supreme Court new building is coming up and the functionality aspect of it. And Supreme Court is playing important role. So it is whether it is on the center vista or not, it is in the center. Yeah, it's center of the Delhi's life, center of the nation's life, that kind of stuff. Right?
Yes, sir.
All the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.